The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Welcome back to another K4Wins. Go around the horn here. Kai Gregory, he has been the man, the myth, the legend, has been doing this kind of stuff, handicapping, taking both sides of the bets now for over 40 years. He knows everything. I know his eyebrows. Okay, people doing it. This is 2025. We can talk about gambling like it really happens now. It's great. I'm Tony Kurre, worked at ESPN Sports Radio for 40 years. Right below me, of course, my partner in crime does fantastic work wherever he was broadcasting, and that could be television, internet, blogs, you name it. His name is Kip Kiefer. He, of course, executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino. And, of course, his son, Case Kiefer, has got his own gig out there in Las Vegas. Las Vegas Sun chief editor, does fantastic work. This is K4Wins. We are a handicapping show. We've been talking lots about hoops, and we'll get into the SEC here in just a minute. Before we do so, we'd like to clear the table and find out if we had another winning week this week. Kyle, what you got?
First and foremost, we got to go with the happy birthday to the man, the myth, the legend.
I was going to bring it up if you weren't, but thank you very much.
Like 50, I said, next
I'll
year,
tell you what,
next year's a big one.
Now hold on a sec. I got to be careful here. Were you at my 39th at Toon's place?
Yes.
Okay, so I got.
We don't need to talk about that. Let's move on. We're going to go over the record. We do not need to talk about that party.
Let me just give the brief synopsis. Toon was a good friend of ours. He owned a limo company, took around all the celebrities around the Southeast, everywhere. So he had all these autographs and everywhere. I go down to his store, which is right outside the airport, and there was about 8 or 9 or 10 of us, I think. There may have been more, and we're playing poker all night long. I had to work the next day, I remember, because I took a shower there and went straight to work. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I must have reeked. I must have smelled. But Taylor Hicks was there. Brian Lest was there. A couple other celebrities stopped by that I will protect. We went all night. We had a great time. A couple of young ladies from Atlanta stopped by.
I left early.
This birthday is slightly different than it was 20 years ago. I'll just put it that way.
All right. So last week we go 20-12. Another good week. Last month, February, 93-51, 93-51. Year to date so far, 224, 108, and 3.
Nice.
Pretty good.
We'll take that. Kip, I want to start with you this morning because you've been red hot in the SEC. I'm seeing now that the Auburn Tigers, despite the fact they lost this past week to A&M, a weird game, 60% of their games have been against quad 1 opponents. They have not only played fantastic, losing only to the 1, 4, and 20 teams in the country, but also, of course, playing one of the world's hardest schedules. But people are saying this is by far the best team since the 2015 Kentucky squad that went 38-0, went to the Final Four. And remember what happened to that team? Everyone that year was saying Kentucky or the field, Kentucky or the field. They didn't quite make it. What do you expect from the Auburn Tigers, and are they that good?
I think the record speaks for itself. The numbers they've compiled, you can't really shoot at them very much in terms of their proficiency and how efficient they are in dispatching opponents. Like you said, they've played a unbelievable schedule. Just playing in the SEC makes you play an unbelievable schedule. What a jungle it is. This week, Auburn goes down, Alabama goes down, Tennessee goes down in back-to-back days, actually. So it's just really tough. I don't know if they're invulnerable. If they are vulnerable, I think they are. They've got all the components and they do all the right things, but man, it's tough to go through this NCAA tournament, win 6 games. A lot of it depends. We talked about it on the TV show. A lot of it depends on just how things fall out. And I'm convinced that even NIL in this new era that we're living in even changes this upcoming March Madness, because I think last year we saw a rash of teams from the 12 and 13 and 14 seeds actually knock off some of the bigger teams. We've seen that in the past, but not with the regularity. I can't I don't remember. Case probably knows, but in the Sweet 16, there were a number of what you would call high seeds, and maybe that's how it's going to continue. I think it's just whoever kind of falls in the right spot and draws the right opponents has the best chance to keep going. Because if you happen to get into a rough patch and play two or three really good teams in a row, which is going to happen later in the tournament, of course, most of the time. I still think this team can be beaten. But I don't say that with any real factual support. I just from watching them, I wasn't surprised A&M kind of pushed them around the other night. When you get the number one team on your home court at the end of the year in a game you have to win, that is a massive incentive, and they delivered. But I don't know what the other guys think, but I don't see Auburn waltzing to the title.
Case that, of course, a player of the year, Broom, ends up going 8-7 in that particular ball game. Your number one guy can't have 8 points and 7 boards and try to win basketball games for sure. It was funny because we've been going in the last couple of weeks. It's been 3 SEC teams and Duke as your 4-1 seeds. And right now, it appears that Houston's got a lock on one. Duke's got one. Auburn certainly has theirs. And now you got Florida, Tennessee, Alabama all vying for that other final one spot right now. Who do you think is that one spot, and how much more jockeying around do we have over the last next couple of days? Another big day in college basketball tomorrow.
Well, thanks for setting that up on a tee for me. I wish I said
Sure.
it more with my chest last week and was a little more confident, but I think I gave out the best futures bet I'll ever give out on the show last week. I said Cooper Flag 2-1. I was mainly doing as a hedge to win Player of the Year. 3 days later, he was minus 500. So you're not going to get a plus 200 to
Wow.
minus 500.
Tune in to K4Wins.
Wow.
Wild with the game he had, and Broom, of course, getting hurt. But I actually, when you were saying that about Auburn, I clicked through Ken Palm, which is obviously the Bible of college basketball analytics. I was like, no way, Auburn. I don't think they quite stack up with like the undefeated Kentucky team stuff. I'm actually surprised, like numerically, efficiency wise, they are right on that level. I mean, so I think you're right with that. They're one of the best teams we've seen in the last 20 years. The problem is, and I know this is contentious and it depends on what you think of their schedule and how good they are. Problem is Duke is right there too. So, I mean, we really have like two of the best teams at the top that have separated themselves more than any other college basketball season. So, yeah, I mean, I know we already know those are the two number one seeds. You got to that, but I think it's a really clear top two. But I also kind of agree with Kip. I don't really see them, just necessarily breezing through the tournament. There's still things I don't love about Auburn, as talented as they are. I don't love their shot quality, their shot diet that much. I think they've run a little hot with how well they've played, but yeah, I mean, certainly the numbers don't lie, the results don't lie. They really are that good. They're even better than I expected after doing that quick click through. I would guess I really don't follow the bracketology too much. I mean, this is I mentioned on the starting line, I think this is my busiest betting week of the year. Just I love tournaments so much that I don't really follow a lot of these leagues during the year. I mainly handicap the power conferences plus Mountain West, A10, maybe dabble in a few others, but I just can't help it. I'm betting every future. I'm trying to handicap every one of these 36 conference tournaments, whatever it is. In addition to that, golf has probably been my highest ROI sport. We got 4 major golf tournaments across the world this week. So this week I'm like running on fumes, and I don't have time to worry about the bracketology or whatever. But off the top of my head and the way people are talking, I would think Florida's the other number one right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be my answer to that question. And yeah, Auburn as good as advertised, but to me, I mean, if we were doing a draft right now at teams, I know you guys will probably disagree with this. I'm probably taking Duke first overall. I just think talent-wise, we've ultimately seen talent win out in this tournament lately, and I feel like they have a higher level. I feel like Shire's developed a little bit as a coach to where he's not holding them down. I mean, you just have a cheat code in Cooper Flag to me. So I think Auburn would slightly be my second pick if we were drafting teams. I would take Duke first.
K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. It is a free site. Go check it out. Subscribe. You're going to get some blogs on there. We're going to be adding some written material. Kai, obviously you're a Tennessee homer. They're playing really well. Of course, they knock off Bama a few games back. That was a big win for them. Alabama on a slide right now. They are 2-4 their last 6 games. The amazing thing in those 4 losses, they're giving up 95.5 points per ball game on defense, including that 110 shot against Missouri. First question is, Tennessee's shot at going from a 2 to a 1 before the end of the season. Do you think or does it really matter to you? I mean, I think they're solidly okay. You're saying 0%. And second of all, Bama last year was 4-5 the last 9 ball games and went to a Final Four. Is that what we're seeing again from Bama? Something tells me they can't do it 2 years in a row.
You know, the way they're shooting, if their shooting comes along, they're going to go as far as the three-pointer takes them, in my opinion. You know, I wanted to throw back something. You know, Duke's won their last 7 games by over 30 points. And if you talk about talent, you've probably got 4 kids. I call them kids. I'm 53. On that team, they're going to be drafted, probably first round. Besides, you know, Flag, obviously. How many does Auburn have? You know, if you think about that after Bren, that are realistically going to be drafted, especially first round. So there's that talent. I do think I would give the coaching matchup to Pearl, but you know, we kind of go from there. And by the way, yesterday, one of our nuggets we gave out that I don't think you're going to see on a lot of places. Kansas City and Omaha in the Summit League tournament, we gave out Omaha -3. They win by 9. You know,
Yeah,
you don't get those in a lot of places.
We talked about that on TV.
We talked about that on TV. You'll see that on our TV show tomorrow morning. Yes.
And so, you know, there's a ton of great matchups this weekend that have huge. I don't even know the word I was going to use, but that matter going into the SEC tournament and other tournaments for seedings and going into you know, next week and the bracketology. And unlike Case, and I totally understand. I look at the bracketology. You know, right now they've got Auburn's second round matchup if everything stayed the same as UConn. Probably if UConn comes out as an 8th seed, which I think is probably a rough matchup for Auburn. So you know, if that was to stay there, but you know, we've only got 4 teams in the SEC that have clinched where they're going to be next week. Number 1 and 2, number 15 and 16. Those are the only ones that have clinched. You've got Tennessee right now is the 4 seed, but then you've got 3 teams beneath them at 10 and 7. If all those things go in, you got to look at all the tiebreakers. If Tennessee was to screw up and lose to South Carolina, which I don't think they will. How healthy is Auburn going to be this weekend against Alabama? Yes, they want to win that game, especially after that ugly win. But if Alabama wins that game, what happens? You know, if Alabama loses that game and Tennessee wins, then Tennessee moves to the 3 seed. Which for Tennessee, I think is the worst matchup because then they play Kentucky in the 3-6 game, and then they have Florida versus 1-4. You get your, you know, maybe your one shot at Auburn, but your 8 seed could be Kentucky. It could be Mississippi State. It could be Vanderbilt. It could be Ole Miss. It could be Missouri. I mean, looking at all these things, and I can't wait because there's some absolutely huge matchups this weekend. And right now, Duke's 11.5 at North Carolina. I think I saw as an opening line. I would absolutely hammer that.
Duke minus the 11.5.
I didn't say which way.
Yeah, I didn't think you did.
Oh yeah,
that's it. Well, based on the first time we saw them, I think you're gonna get an idea which you're going. Case, it's been an interesting year because it has been Duke and Auburn and everyone else really over the last couple of weeks. But then I'm looking at a lot of teams, and I'm a Big East guy because my Muskies look like they're getting in by the hair of their chinny chin chin. But I'm looking at St. John's. I'm looking at Michigan State. I'm looking at who else? Iowa State. I'm looking at Texas Tech. No one's talking about them as a 2 seed right now. On that next tier of teams, who do you see in those next tier of teams by a betting wise standpoint? Because I'm always like, when I go to horse tracks, and this bites me in the ass every time I go, and Kip, you'll think this is funny. I don't ever like to take the favorite because the favorite won't pay anything. I don't like to take the long shot because I don't think the long shot's going to make it. So I always bet that 6-1, 7-1, 8-1 horse.
Guy, yeah.
And that middle guy never wins. That middle guy never wins. At least he doesn't when I'm
often.
When he never does, because it's almost like there's good value there, and there's a reason why it's good value because he ain't going to sniff the finish line. Does it play out that way in basketball? 2 seeds obviously are very, very good, but 3 and 4 seeds from an outside shot, do they have a shot? Is there anybody here lurking as a dark horse?
I mean, there certainly are. I'm going to be callous and sound ridiculous, but I feel like I've earned it because I've talked about it for a year. If you're betting futures at this point, it's too late. I mean, you're just donating money. The market knows where it is. I mean, I made my first bet on the college basketball national championship this year, the night of last year's national championship. So, I mean, that's how early I like to build my portfolio. And I do think there was some opportunity as recently as what's the last time we talked about this? Maybe a month ago or so. I wrote about it. I wrote about it 2 different places. I loved Houston. I said the gap's not as big between Duke and Auburn. I've
been talking about them for like 4 weeks. Yeah,
I still think there's value in like picking Houston to get through the tournament. But betting wise now, I think they're like 5 or 6 to 1. I think that's kind of right. When it was 10 to 1 or even 8 to 1, I thought they were kind of the one. To me, they're the clear third best team. So at this point, as far as futures, if you're looking to latch on, like the horse racing metaphor, if you're looking to latch on to a team, I'd at least want to see the draw first. I'd at least want to see the Final Four. I mean, to me, if I was betting one now, I would more want to take a super long shot that you just hope gets in that good draw. I think I mentioned one on the starting lineup. And in that second tier team, you mentioned some teams I'm actually really skeptical of that I've heard people give a lot of love. So I guess I'll throw out some teams I'm looking to bet against in March that most people aren't. I know you follow the Big East closely, so maybe you feel differently than me. I haven't really been impressed by the Big East this year. I think it's way down and unbelievably coached. I think the story's great. They deserve all that, but I'm pretty skeptical of St. John's. I don't think they're. If this team makes the Final Four, I'd be shocked. I think offensively they have some clear flaws. Defensively that they're strong, but I've heard people say, "Oh, don't sleep on Rick Pitino. This is a national championship pretender." This team is not winning the national championship.
They're not deep enough.
25-1 to win the national championship or something.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. And also, another one. But both of these are tough to me because of coaching wise, and obviously results wise they've had it. But I feel like the results have been a little flattering. I don't love Michigan State either, even though they're going to end up winning the Big Ten running away. I don't think, talent-wise, process-wise, all that, I don't think they're necessarily the best team in the Big Ten. They're another team that, in a tight game when you really need a bucket, I'm kind of worried about Michigan State offensively too. So I feel like Michigan State and St. John's are going to be two of those teams from that second tier that you talk about that a lot of people are going to be picking to make the Final Four. And I can guarantee you right now, I'll probably have just trying to pick up points where other people don't. I'll probably have them both out before the Sweet 16. So I lost my train of thought exactly what you were asking. I do like Texas Tech a lot. You mentioned Texas Tech and that second tier of teams. I still think Houston's a little bit under the radar and is a team that can play with Duke and Auburn, but I think it's right in that Duke and Auburn are in a tier of their own. Houston's just a little bit closer than most people think, in my opinion.
You mentioned the Johnnies. They got that big matchup on Saturday against Marquette, another team that could come out of nowhere. They're just playing really good. I agree with you on the Big East. The Big East reminded me a lot of what the SEC is doing this year. I mean, they're going to beat each other up. They're going to get at 11 or 12 teams. As of right now, the SEC's got 12 in. Oklahoma, Texas out. My Muskies are just getting in. Arkansas is also getting in by the hair of their chinny chin chin. So it appears there's about 12 teams, 2 of those 1 seeds, and of course 1, 2 seed. One team is playing really weird this year, Kip, to me. And I thought when Alabama beat them, I thought, okay, this Bama team is for real. Not to say they weren't before this game, but when they knocked off Kentucky, I thought, okay, this is a good team because Kentucky was playing really well. What's going on with Kentucky right now? They got a Missouri game. That was part of one of your marquee matchups going into the weekend. This is a big game for them because they've been holding on to that 2-3 seed, really about 3 seed, but right now they're a 4 seed and they're dropping. What's going on with the Wildcats?
I don't know. They just haven't been very consistent. Case has mentioned their injury problems. They've got that player back, but has not really shined in his first couple games back. I don't know. This team is barely 500. I think they're 8-7 right now in the league. They've lost a lot they're like the signature win for half the teams trying to get in the tournament.
Yeah.
Texas, well, we beat Kentucky. Georgia, we beat Kentucky. Everybody's beaten Kentucky. So I'm not that impressed. I guess I heard some commentator. I don't know what Mark, and maybe you guys that really follow this religiously, Mark Pope is gets more reverence than the real Pope. Mark Pope, Mark Pope has done a phenomenal job with this Kentucky team. If this been Pitino right now at Calipari at 8-7, there, get the bum out of here. He sucks.
That's why he left.
Yeah. So I don't understand the romance with Mark Pope. I don't think this Kentucky team has been very impressive, and I don't think they're a dark horse. I heard somebody say the other day, well, Kentucky with their pedigree and their players, they can make a run in this tournament. I don't see it. I just don't think they're very good. Circling back to the Big Ten real quick, I've had one observation the last couple of weeks. Remember a couple of Saturdays ago, Duke and Illinois played a very weird game for this time of year on a Saturday night, some kind of showcase tournament. I don't know what the hell it was, but Duke just killed them. I mean, it was just an absolute bloodbath. Illinois has beaten like 2 of the 3 top Big Ten teams since that game, which may indicate what Case is saying, that Michigan State might be a paper tiger when we get to the tournament, because Illinois against Duke looked like a complete mismatch. In Illinois, I think they're playing Purdue tonight, which is a big game. In the Big Ten scheme of things, but the Big Ten doesn't like it. They're strutting their stuff with their football success, which just worked out famously for them. They've always believe they're the great basketball power, but I think the Big Ten overall is really suspect.
Having lived in Louisville, Kentucky for 3 years, of the Denny Crum years, and then of course you're talking about Pope. I think a lot of people want to toot his horn only because there's two reasons. First of all, the people who love Calipari, and those are the people that would go to the gates of hell for John Calipari. Listen, he won one national title there. I think 2 Final Fours. They didn't bring him in to win one national title. He should be in the mix in a Final Four every single year, particularly with his one and dones. And now with the NIL, everyone's equal with him. And the people that are clamoring for Pope are sitting there saying, "We told you so." Calipari isn't that so special. That's why you're probably hearing a lot about Mark Pope. Not that he's a great coach, but just because he's different and he's still successful to a point at Kentucky.
No, I mean, I hate that I've turned into the Big Blue Nation guy on here, and I don't think they're great. I don't think they're going to make a run, but I would have Mark Pope back a little bit. Where would this Kentucky team rank since Calipari's been there in terms of talent? Dead last. There's no doubt this is like a team made up of spare parts. And have they been the worst team in the last 15 years of Kentucky? Absolutely not. So you got to adjust for what's on the roster, and I think Pope has done a good job for what they have. Now, if this was year 4 and he's like, then the fringe top 25 team. They have dealt with a lot of injuries too. I know Lamont Butler's back, who I've harped on, but Jackson Robinson's still been out the last couple games. I feel like he got a grade on a curve, and this is his first year. You remember how I think people forget how fast this all came together. This roster, I think they had 3 scholarship players like late in the process when everyone else had their roster. So he had to just grab guys here and there. I know it's still better. I'm not making it out to be their like a bottom tier Big East team. Like, it's Kentucky, you have resources, but this is not like the Kentucky 6 draft pick teams you think. I don't think they have that great of personnel, and I think that if someone else was coaching them, they would not be in the position they were. So I actually am a Mark Pope guy. I think he's done a good job this year.
K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. Check out the website. It's absolutely free. You can subscribe. You get writings, get all kinds of great things. He's down there making the sign of the cross. Before we get back down the Kip, I want to go to Case.
Yeah, that was for the Pope.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and he does need some prayers right now. Double pneumonia, not a good situation for these Catholics out there, including myself. We're doing this show here on the 7th, which is my birthday, by the way. Tomorrow being the 8th, we're going to have those plays. I know you're watching to get plays, K4Wins.com. Before we do that, Case, I want you to take a look at the SEC numbers for tomorrow. We definitely, of course, need the Auburn-Alabama line. If you got the Missouri-Texas or Missouri-Kentucky line, give us some of the lines for the SEC games. And then let's dive into some plays, you guys, things that when you looked at the paper, you're like, whoa, that's an interesting lineup or a good legal line. We'll get through some games here as we get ready for the weekend. But what are some of those lines? What's that Auburn-Alabama line tomorrow?
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to apologize out of the panel. I really let you guys down. As I said, I'm betting so much. I barely slept this week. I did not get around to doing my own numbers before the show today. I had the SEC typed out, but I had to get some sleep. So I haven't done my own number. I'm going to do it right when we get off. That being said, I have some ballpark ranges of where I thought things would be, and a few of the big games the big sports books have already posted. So I'm pretty sure I would have made Auburn like 7. I'm worried that
ESPN has it 7.5 this morning.
Yeah, I don't think they have any reason to really hit the gas pedal. But this is posted a lot of places right now, and they're pretty much 8.5 across the board. So I felt like last time these two teams played, I was on an island, and I was the only one of us, and the only person I felt in the nation picking Auburn, and it came through it. Right now, I kind of think it might be a buy low on Alabama, especially I'm seeing some
I agree
8.5 even money. I would bet that right now if I could. It can't in Nevada. It's only if the big national sports books, the casino chains have a monopoly here and don't let anyone else in. But plus 8.5 even money, I would be on Alabama right now.
Again, I'll say this real quick because a lot of people are looking at, and Kip, you're really good at this. You look at a team that's lost a game, that shouldn't have lost a game, and how they bounce back the next week. And I know you bet that way because you're into those vibes, those algorithms when it comes, and you've been really good on the SEC. A lot of people look at this game and go, okay, it's Alabama's chance to go ahead and pay back Auburn Tigers, particularly since Auburn lost their game against A&M earlier this week, and they're going to bite back with revenge. Well, they won that first matchup. They don't want to get banged up. I think this game's a lot more important to Alabama than it is to Auburn. Just I don't know where.
If
if they give up triple digits to Auburn, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. And I mean, it's obviously at Auburn, so we'll see what happens. Case, continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just my first thoughts. Again, I like to run the numbers. I'm a data guy, so maybe I do this and it comes out and I have Auburn like a 9-point favorite. I would be shocked if that's the case, but off the top of my head, my first reaction is I would like Alabama a little bit there. The only other SEC game I see any numbers on currently you can actually bet is Missouri, a 3.5-point favorite over Kentucky. I mean, both these teams kind of headed in the wrong direction. I would have guessed if you had me just off the top of my head, I would have probably said Missouri was 4 or 4.5 there. So, I mean, Kentucky continues to get respect as we just talked about. I don't know, no real strong opinion there. I know Kip's pet peeve, not a whole lot of other numbers also posted. I do see Duke, North Carolina posted a lot of places. Duke 12.5-point favorite. I can't believe this feels like Big Ten football part 2 to me. I do expect Duke will win. I know the first time they played, I pounded Duke. I think this North Carolina team's a total fraud. I don't think they're good at all, but they are playing a lot better now. And I think I have a huge future on Duke to win the ACC. To get back to the football thing, which I got to be the only idiot in America. I had a huge future on Ohio State to win the Big Ten and no other futures. And of course, we saw what happened to that. Now, somehow, if Duke loses this game, I think Clemson and Louisville are just one game behind them. So I think they would technically be tied, and I'd have to get some dead heat rules. I'd still get some money back. But I can't believe if I lose an Ohio State to win the Big Ten and Duke to win the ACC future, both at plus money in the same year. I can't even imagine that. So I am a little, as much as I think the Tar Heels just stink, there's no way I would pick them to win a tournament game. I don't care what the matchup is right now. I'm worried they're playing a little better in North Carolina. I won't be rushing to lay the 12.5. I can tell you that for sure. In fact, maybe I should hope it goes a little higher, and I should bet some back just in case, try to hit the middle just in case Duke loses this and I somehow get cheated out of a future that I feel like should have cashed long ago.
Kai, give us some games you're looking at for a big full day. This podcast will go up immediately up on Friday or a Saturday or even a Sunday. And, of course, we're getting ready for tournament time. And another reason I love tournaments is I love when I get busy. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've had a couple hours in. Next thing you know, I look and there's a basketball game at 9 a.m. I love those tournaments, man. It is one of the best times of the year for sure because it goes 24 hours a day. But, Kai, what are some games that are really sticking out to you?
It's kind of interesting because next week we'll be live when some games are going on, actually. But really one that's sticking out to me just because of the way they've been playing lately, and it's not SEC, is Iowa State and Kansas State tomorrow. Kansas State's been pretty good at home. I really am not, Iowa State they had at the end, either as the last two or one of the first threes. And I think Iowa State may go to Kansas State and lose this game and drop themselves to maybe a 4 seed. I'm looking at that. The Alabama-Auburn game, I can see where everybody would say it's more important to Alabama. Bruce Pearl does not want to lose to Alabama at Auburn on senior day.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could lay 9, but I have zero confidence in Nate Oates' defense right now. The lack of defense at Alabama over the last 5 games has been, as a whole, has been disgusting. I thought they played a pretty decent first half defensively against Florida, but I'm not sure anybody in the SEC matches up with Florida real well right now. The way they're playing, if they can continue this for 3 weeks, I would not want to play them in the SEC. I do have Auburn and Florida in the championship, SEC championship. Right now, looking at it before any bracket or anything, just 1-2. I know, way to go out on a limb, right? But I really like the way Florida's playing, and everybody they've played in the last month, they've out-hustled. I don't love Golden, but I think he's doing an incredible job coaching this team. Yeah. I don't like him, but I'm a Tennessee fan, and that's why I don't like him. I think he's doing as good, if not better, a job than anybody in the SEC coaching. The only person I would give a close second would be Barnes, just because he only has 9 scholarship players and their defense travels. But they beat Florida once. They lost to Florida once. It'd be an interesting matchup, if that comes down. Texas Tech at Arizona State. I think that line's going to be too high going into their tournament week. So that interests me. The Houston-Baylor game, really, I think Baylor plays so much better at home, but Houston's defense travels. So I'm looking at that. And then the Mormon battle, Utah versus BYU, Saturday night is one that I'm looking at aside. But if you look at the SEC this week, Saturday is so big for seedings because literally from 4 through 14 can change. I don't think 14 is really going to change that much, Oklahoma and Texas, but they play each other. So if Oklahoma wins that game, they move to 13. Not that it really matters that much, but everybody else, there can be huge changes. And so we can talk about the SEC tournament all we want, but we won't know anything till Saturday night. Saturday night, we'll know everything. And there's some huge games there in the SEC that I think we may see that match, a couple of those matchups again a week later.
Kip, the floor is yours, my friend. What do you like this weekend? A whole host of fantastic games. Put your fingers on some things.
I think Texas Oklahoma could be a de facto bubble game to get into the big dance. You don't know how things are going to work out. Both those teams are right on the fringe. I think that's critical for one to beat the other. Give Oklahoma props. I had pretty much given up on them for dead. Like their football team. Nice first year in the SEC, Sooners, by the way. Boomer all the way. But I think Texas at home handles them. I think Texas is a better team. So that's a game that has my attention. Some other intriguing games. Arkansas squarely on the bubble. They've got a chance to host Mississippi State, who looks like they're solidly in. That's another game that has big implications because we talked about this yesterday when we were doing the TV stuff. I don't think the committee really, maybe the first couple games of the conference tournaments, some of these teams that are really on the edge, but as the tournaments go on, they seem to ignore what's happening. I think the regular season has more impact than the tournaments for whatever reason for these committees historically. So I think a couple of these games with these teams right on the edge, and there's probably going to be a reluctance to having 13 SEC teams in, but I don't think it's impossible. I think they'd probably like to keep it at 12, just from a perception standpoint. But there's a couple of teams that are right in the mix that have big games this week. I also tend to think that Georgia's really an interesting team right now because I had given them completely up for dead when they lost 4 in a row about 2 weeks ago. Now all they've done is bounce back and beat Florida, which is unbelievable after watching how Florida played against Alabama. And then also winning their first 2 SEC road games of the year back-to-back at Texas and South Carolina. And don't sell that South Carolina win short. They've been tough as hell at home this year against everybody, and Georgia got the lead and never relinquished it. Georgia's an interesting team. They're long, they're incredibly athletic, and now they've got a couple of guys that are actually consistently scoring. I don't think if you're in the NCAA tournament as about a 5-12 kind of game, I don't think you're really going to want to see the Georgia Bulldogs in the first round because this is an athletic team that can be a real pain in the ass. One other fact that I'll bring up that some of you guys might have been aware of this, I didn't know till just the other night that Asa Newell, who's the leading scorer for Georgia, a freshman, was on the same high school team last year in Destin, Florida as Cooper Flagg. That's unbelievable to me.
Wow. Talk about a deucem on the same basketball squad.
This kid's 6'10" and scoring like crazy for Georgia.
Yeah, so I get up this morning at 6:30. My phone rings. It's my son, and of course, my son calls me at 6:30 in the morning. There's an emergency going on because my son does not see the sun, and he's calling me to let me know that he's going back to Clemson, going back to school on a Friday. And I said, "It's my birthday. You're leaving on my birthday? Go back." He goes, "Well, I got a lot of studying to do, Dad. I got a lot of class to take this afternoon, get over by noon." He's going back to watch that Clemson Vatech game tomorrow. It's the only reason he's going back because he's got a pair of tickets for that bad boy. I do like the way Clemson's playing right now. I think they're playing fantastic. And now, of course, you got that Clemson FSU thing out of the way. So it appears that they're going to be better than everything else in the ACC. They're getting a bigger share of their pie. That goes for basketball as well. I like Clemson against Vatech tomorrow. You mentioned Texas Tech and Arizona State. State plays really well at home. So I'm kind of leaning AZ a little bit. I'm going to check that out. My Xavier Musketeers, this is when they really start playing well and start gelling together. They just get in. I've seen this happen a lot of times when they are in as a 3 or 4 or 5 seed. They don't play well, but when they're playing for their lives, they do well. They've knocked off Providence already, I believe, earlier this season. They've got them at home, and I think that's big. I do like them. I'm going to be interested to see how A&M plays on the road at LSU. That was a huge win, of course, the first time they've knocked off a number 1 team ever. And now all of a sudden they got to go on a road against a team that has nothing really to play for. They can be bruisers and losers and spoilers. And does LSU do that to A&M? I don't know. A&M had lost 4 games going to that Auburn game and somehow pulls off the win. Very impressive. We'll see what happens there. And then I think the Ole Miss Florida game is going to be really interesting too. We were just talking about how good Florida is. Ole Miss sitting there, I think they're right now at about a 10 seed, maybe a 9 seed, a 10 seed. I don't hear anything about Ole Miss. I don't know anything about that basketball team. I couldn't tell you who plays in that basketball team. I follow their scores. I see who's going there. But you just don't hear anything about Ole Miss this season, the Rebels. And I'm wondering, maybe this is their time to let people know, hello, don't forget about us. We're one of the 12 to get in.
They gutted out a great one against Tennessee the other night. And it was a guy that I'm not even that familiar with, a senior Brakefield, that had the game of his life. I mean, they went to him every time in the post, and Tennessee had guys hanging all over him. He was making fadeaways and duck unders, and the guy was phenomenal.
Florida is much bigger, though, and if it's less than 10.
Yes, I agree. I think Ole Miss, I think they spilled it all out of the drum the other night against the Volunteers. I think that's going to be a walkover. I think Florida blows them away. And I really like that. And I love Tennessee over South Carolina too. South Carolina had their big finale run here at the end of the year, but I think Tennessee just wipes the floor with them. I don't know how big the number is going to be.
I think they blow.
Where's our useless Tony Curry fact of the day? We haven't. Nobody's given one.
Well, I give you some Auburn facts right there off the top. About 60% of the games against Quad One schools. I'm holding on for the big season, my friend. We got tournaments starting right now.
Just
hang on, dude. I could do the whole damn podcast without you, Kai, and I just do Tony Curry facts, brother. I could go 3 hours right here, man.
Let's go. Give me one. I know you got one rattling around in that brain.
Sometimes they hit. Hey, listen, I'm saving it for our show next week. We're going to be live, God willing, on Coastal Radio Network. They do a sports network. They cover the entire East Coast. We're happy to be with those fine folks. We'll be doing an hour show next week, which will be absolutely no problem for these four blowhards. So we're going to get after it. Should be a large time. Check our show out on TV, ABC 3340 here locally in Birmingham. It is called The Starting Lineup. We'll get up with the Legends going to join us in the couch. We'll do that tomorrow morning from 10:30, 11 o'clock. K4Wins.com. K4Wins.com. The site is free. Free plays, all those numbers we told you, 68, 69%. You could have gotten all that for free. You could subscribe, read some great stuff from Kip. He's talking about all kinds of wonderful things. Yeah, and just great blogs to check it out. Of course, we'll also have some stuff up there from Case and myself as well as Kai. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. We'll back at you next week right here on K4 Wins. Thank you, guys.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.